starting the seminar. Over to you, Shilpa ji.
Thank you. A very good morning to the respected chief guest, Ms. Nabila Saif Salim Al-Jasri, guest of honor, CA Kamlesh S. Vikramsi, our eminent speaker, CA Rajiv Saxena, invited guests and members of the Muscat chapter of ICAI. I am Shilpa Pawani, the treasurer of the Muscat chapter of ICAI, and I will be the MC for today. At the outset, on behalf of our chairperson, CA Ravi Diora, and the entire managing committee of the Muscat chapter, I formally welcome you all to today's CP event. I would like to begin my welcome address with gratitude. A heartfelt gratitude to all the 16 members who have volunteered to be the exam observers, the Indian School Gubra and its staff for providing and handling the examination center, and the Indian Embassy for its invaluable support. The examinations are to be held in Muscat from 5th December to 20th December. We wish all the students with the best of luck to come out successful. A thank you to all the members who joined us last weekend for our badminton tournament. It was truly gratifying to watch our CA families play their best games in the true spirit of sportsmanship. As the chairperson of the Women Members Empowerment Committee, I am very happy to share that we successfully conducted our third I Am Remarkable workshop exclusively for the staff of Oman Investment Authority. We are thankful to our facilitator, Ms. Rachna, for conducting the workshop for us. This workshop has been very beneficial to all who have participated, and we look forward to extend this workshop to all the organizations that are interested. The chapter is also organizing a career development program for the students of the University of Niswa on the 22nd of December. I hope all the members have cast their vote in the ICAI elections. May the best man or woman win. We are also currently working on the renewal of the MOU with CBFS, which is at the final stage of cabinet approval and is expected soon. The managing committee is very excited about our upcoming international conference, and we are hopeful that we will be holding it as a physical event. To make it a grand success, we request your support in terms of sponsorships and active participation. The dates are under finalization and will be announced shortly. Another prestigious and exciting event is the World Congress of Accountants. There is a short promotional video that we will play now.
Thank you, Shilpa ji. I'll play it.
Proudly supports World Congress of Accountants. World Congress of Accountants, popularly known as Olympics of Accountancy Profession, is held every 4 years under the banner of International Federation of Accountants, worldwide organization for accounting profession. This would be the first time ever that India would be hosting this prestigious event.
It is a proud moment, not only for the accounting fraternity in India, but for the fraternity in South Asia, as India is the first country among the South Asian countries to hold the World Congress.
ICAI has achieved recognition as a premier accounting body in India. Today, it is one of the largest accounting bodies in the world. World Congress of
Sangeeta, the video cannot be seen. Can you play it with the video, please, from the beginning?
It's not shown? Sorry.
Yeah.
Just a minute then.
Please. Perfect. Now you can start it.
Proudly supports World Congress of Accountants.
World Congress of Accountants, popularly known as Olympics of Accountancy Profession, is held every 4 years under the banner of International Federation of Accountants, worldwide organization for accounting profession.
This would be the first time ever that India would be hosting this prestigious event.
It is a proud moment, not only for the accounting fraternity in India, but for the fraternity in South Asia, as India is the first country among the South Asian countries to hold the World Congress.
ICAI has achieved recognition as a premier accounting body in India. Today, it is one of the largest accounting bodies in the world.
World Congress of Accountants is the most prestigious global event of professional accountants, wherein 6,000 delegates from 130 member countries of IPAC will exchange their views with other accounting and finance professionals around the world.
On international front, ICAI is represented at International Federation of Accountants, Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants, Chartered Accountant Worldwide, and South Asian Federation of Accountants.
We will get an opportunity to hear to world-class speakers and leaders of finance and business community and interact with the accounting and finance professional from all around the world and debate the current issues and trends in the profession.
Speakers include international trendsetters, accounting bodies, accounting firms, regulators, and commerce groups.
India, a land of infinite opportunity.
India is amongst the fastest growing world economies. It is the digital capabilities hub of the world with around 75% of the global digital talent present in India. India, a country of the youth, is home to about 20,000 startups with about 1,400 beginning operations every year.
India has something to offer to everyone who is visiting India, be it tourism, investment, business, or service.
You name it, India has it.
Mumbai is the financial capital of the country and home to many big financial and corporate institutions.
Mumbai is also the base of Indian film industry, very well known as Bollywood, the city that never sleeps, the city of dreams, and the city of 7 islands are few of the names used to describe the wonderful city of Mumbai. Mumbai attracts the highest number of foreign tourists and is one of the most preferred tourist destinations in India.
The world's leading accounting and finance professionals are coming to Mumbai. Let's join together to enrich yourself of this world-class opportunity.
ICAIക്ക് വേണ്ടി എല്ലാവരെയും മുംബൈയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു.
મુંબઈમાં તમારું સ્વાગત છે.
જી આયામી.
मुंबईर आघोषित हिसाब शास्त्रेर ऑलिम्पिक्से शोभाय के स्वागत.
काय मग येणार ना नक्की? இந்த நிகழ்ச்சிக்கு அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம்.
आंजो स्वागत है वर्ल्ड कांग्रेस ऑफ अकाउंटेंट्स में.
भारत में आपका स्वागत है.
Welcome to Olympics of Accountancy Profession, Mumbai. पधारो मारे देश.
Thank you, CA Sangeeta. Well, we look forward to your support and hope to see most of you there. Coming back to today's topic, managing fraud risk during pandemic and development in audit practices. Well, we are all living in uncharted territory. From a VUCA world, we have now moved on to a Bani world, a brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible world. We are susceptible to catastrophe at any time. Anxiety is not only there in people's personal lives, but in the job market as well. We are in a world whose events seem disconnected and disproportionate. We have managed to learn the Greek alphabet, if we haven't already, thanks to the new COVID variants found every few months. While no one knows what will happen with the coronavirus and the economy, one thing is certain. In times of uncertainty, the number of malpractice cases rise. It could also happen that previously hidden activities can come into light during crises. Today's CPE event hopes to shed some light on understanding the environment, managing and mitigating the fraud risk, and to learn about the developments in audit practices and increased importance of professional skepticism in response to the pandemic. May I now request CA Sangeeta to welcome and introduce our chief guest, Ms. Nabila. Over to you, Ms. Sangeeta.
Thank you, CA Shilpa. It's my honor and privileged to introduce and welcome Ms. Nabila. Nabila Al-Jasri is the Chief Internal Audit at Oman Investment Authority, the government of Oman's state-owned entity and sovereign wealth fund. Nabila has been leading the OIA internal audit team since March 2014, leading the transformation of internal audit function from an outsourced model to an in-house model. She has held leadership roles in Higher Water and Shell International and started her career with the Big Four. Nabila's extensive career background of over 20 years in governance and assurance sectors includes experiences in large global international organizations and has led and conducted audits, control, and risk engagements across various industries, including financial services, oil and gas, and other diversified industries. Nabila's expertise includes governance, risk management, and internal control models. She has advised various boards, committees, and task forces in the various organizations in her career. From education point of view, Nabila is a fellow chartered accountant from the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, FCCA, in the United Kingdom, a certified internal auditor, CIA, and has a Bachelor of Commerce degree. She has also been nominated by the Government of Oman for the National Collaborative Leadership Program in partnership with Oxford University, a high-impact leadership program focused on building future collaborative leaders of Oman. She is also currently pursuing her master's in finance and investment management from UK. With this, I extend my warm welcome to you, Ms. Nabila. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words for us, Ms. Nabila?
Yes. So salam alaikum, everyone. Good morning to my fellow chartered accountants. Thank you for your kind introduction, Ms. Shilpa and Sangeeta. I think I need to shorten it a bit, but thanks a lot. It gives me great pleasure to be part of the seminar on managing fraud risk during the pandemic. I understand that the Muscat chapter of the Institute of Chartered Accountants has been very active in providing very interesting webinars on relevant topics, and this one is very relevant at these times. I believe that these educational sessions greatly help us as chartered accountants looking beyond today and to foresee our profession, how we can sustain it and enhance it for the relevance of tomorrow. In today's session, I totally agree that the coronavirus pandemic has taught us all to be at high alert during these very uncertain times. All companies have been affected by the pandemic, and I totally agree that these sessions greatly help us all to learn how to maneuver and teach us how to adapt and make the necessary changes. So I'd like to thank the Muscat chapter of the Institute of Chartered Accountants and its leadership team for its continuing to keep us educated and updated, and I appreciate you and your team in spreading the knowledge across the profession. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nabila. We are truly privileged to have you today here with us today. May I now request CA Unmesh Bhume to please welcome and introduce our guest of honor, Shri Kamlesh Vikramsi. Over to you, Unmesh.
Thank you, Shilpa ji. Good morning, Sir Kamlesh ji. Before I start introducing Kamlesh ji, I just want to tell everybody that I share two date lines with Kamlesh sir. He became chartered accountant in 1982, and I was born in 1982. He was the president of ICAI in the year 2005 and 2006, and I became chartered accountant in the year 2006, sir. So I think there's a lot to correlate with you. Okay, sir, actually doesn't need introduction, but I have the privilege to introduce Kamlesh sir. He is presently the chairperson of Independent Management Advisory Committee of International Telecommunications Union, and he's also the member of Audit Committee of WMO Geneva. He's also on the National Advisory Board for Manav Sandhan Vikas Samstha. He's also independent director of on a lot of public companies. He's also a trustee of and treasurer of Global Vipassana Foundation, a trustee of Dhammapattan Vipassana Trust, as well as trustee of the World Opportunity Foundation. In the past, sir has been chairperson of Audit Advisory Committee of United Nations Children's Fund. We know it as UNICEF. He was also the chairperson of External Audit Committee of IMF. And the list is big. He was the chairperson of Audit Advisory Committee of UNDP. He was the president of CAPA as well. He was board member of IFAC. He was on the steering committee of United Nations. And then the list continues, sir. So we are happy to host you for this seminar on the fraud. Sir, over to you. A few words for the fraternity.
Thank you, Unmesh, for the kind introduction. CA Ravi, Chairman of Muscat Chapter of ICAI, and all other office bearers. Firstly, of course, thank you very much for inviting me in this seminar to address the members. I hope all of you, your near and dear ones at home in Muscat as well as in India, are safe and healthy. Let's take this pandemic. In India, of course, the numbers have gone down and therefore we are a bit complacent in carrying out our activities. But internationally, be it Europe or other places, lockdowns have again been clamped in. So let's be extremely careful and vigilant as far as this virus is concerned. It's still not gone away, and our scientific community is trying to address this entire problem of pandemic. But I think we should cooperate with them and be safe and not be carriers of the virus to other people at our homes, senior citizens or even children. With this opening remarks, let me just briefly talk about the landscape of the accounting profession in India. For the knowledge of, I'm sure most of you must be reading the Indian newspapers, but we are in challenging times. When I say in challenging times, the profession in India, the kind of oversight today by the regulators, be it the NAFRA or be it the SEBI or any other regulator for that matter, has increased so much that we as a profession must really rise up to the occasion to meet the expectations of the society in whatever work we are doing, be it assurance or tax advisory or any other work we are doing. So the Institute is looking into how to address these issues, how to train members, how to talk to the regulators as to what should be their expectation, because sometimes the expectations are raised so much by the regulators, which is not even contemplated by the auditing standards. Ultimately, we are all bound by our auditing standards, and we are required to follow them strictly in letter and spirit. But the way the interpretation of those auditing standards have been done by the regulator, especially NAFRA, the National Financial Reporting Authority, it's a bit sad. And the reason for that particular interpretation is that there are no professionals in that body. There should have been more audit professionals, experienced, reputed audit professionals in that body to make the authority also understand as to what are expected out of the members of the institute when they are doing their attest function, and what's the kind of documentation and audit evidence the audit firm must collect in the audit. Having said that, let me turn to taxation. And in terms of taxation, the technology has taken so much advancement in both GST as well as income tax. We have complete now online system of taxation. And in fact, in income, the government has introduced a new scheme which is called the Faceless assessment scheme. What it means is that you don't need to go to the income tax office at all. if there's a audit or a scrutiny of your case, all you have to do is the officer will put things, and the officer will be an anonymous officer. You will not know who the officer is. It's not your jurisdictional officer. He or she will write to you, and you provide all information online, by putting it on in a soft copy and supplying whatever information is required. And there are checks and balances provided, so that if you need a hearing, you will be provided a virtual hearing. And the scheme has started since last year. It's worked quite well. They are ironing out some teething troubles, but this forward for the profession as well. We get the hints and the pointers as to what technology is capable of doing and where the entire world is heading. And that applies to both all the work we are doing, be it the assurance work we are doing, or the advisory work we are doing, or the tax regulation compliance, or whatever work we are doing. We have to embrace technology in a manner in which we are one step ahead of the tax gatherer, or we rise up to the expectation of the society as far as the assurance services are concerned. And last year, with the lockdowns and with the assurance which we needed to provide, the entire profession had risen to the had raised the bar of how to do an audit offline. Earlier we used to go to the client place and carry out the audit by gathering data and evidences, whatever we required. But those times completely changed because of the lockdown. And physically, we were not, going to the client place. We were sitting in our own homes, not even offices, at homes. But as a profession, we rose to that occasion. We did, to the best of our ability, applied all the auditing standards in a manner in which they are supposed to be applied, and did the assurance service what was required of us. So I believe the world will now, change to a hybrid kind of a, model. The model of, going and physically, like today, I'm sitting at my own home and addressing members in Muscat. I would have loved to be in Muscat and, meet and greet all of you and interact with all of you. But at the same time, this platform which is provided, which is the virtual platform, is giving us a lot of opportunity to save on, as I was talking to Shilpa before the conference started, it saves the environment also of the fossil fuel and the carbon emission, what we are doing. And therefore, I think it has a lot of merits in what the pandemic has taught us, how to carry on our business. So having said that, I would put on a note of appreciation for the Muscat chapter members, all of you. You are the brand ambassadors of the Indian chartered accountancy profession in Muscat. And please add value to whatever work you are doing to the economy of Oman, because you are there to work on the economy of Oman. So do your best in contributing to the economy of Oman and be a good brand ambassador for the profession of chartered accountancy, the Indian profession of chartered accountancy in Oman. I would, at the cost of repetition, I think Shilpa had mentioned this, but at the cost of repetition, the ICAI elections are on. In fact, if you were in India, you were polling, today is the second day of, actually the day of polling of the ICAI elections. And I would request each member to please cast their vote. You're in a foreign country and therefore you're required to cast your vote by a postal ballot. Please go through the profiles of members who are contesting elections. Please cast your vote. It's very, very important that in any democracy that we as voters exercise our franchise in a manner where we bring in the leadership of the profession, which will steer us through number one, these difficult times, and for the exciting growth which is there in times to come. Again, at the cost of repetition, I would also personally extend a warm welcome to all of you to the World Congress of Accountants, which the video which you have shot is beautiful, the Muscat chapter. I must really congratulate it. It's very touching and a very, very appealing video. So I would appeal to each and every member that please participate in the World Congress of Accountants. If you can, please come physically. Muscat is not far from Bombay. I mean, it's a very short flight from Muscat to Bombay. Please come and participate in the World Congress of Accountants 2022. It's, as it is said, it's an Olympics of the accounting world. And I've myself participated in 3 to 4 World Congress of Accountants, which is held in different parts of the world once in 4 years. And as was mentioned, you will have the best of contemporary topics picked up for that World Congress, and you will have best of speakers from across the world who will come and address you. And I'm sure the Institute also will give a facility for members who cannot physically travel to even participate virtually as well, because now that we are in this virtual world, I think it will be a hybrid kind of a conference where people who can participate physically should come and participate in Mumbai, but people who cannot come and participate physically, please do so virtually as well. I mean, it will immensely benefit all of you. So with these few words, I would like to end my address. And once again, all the very best for this conference. And I've been watching the Muscat chapter. You have been doing very good programs of late. I'm sorry, I was invited earlier as well, physically, of course, before the COVID times, I'm saying, physically by the Muscat chapter, but due to time constraint, I was not able to travel to Muscat. But in one of the normal times in the future, maybe God willing, if given an opportunity, I would love to be with all of you. Thank you very much, and back to you, Umesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kamleshji. Thank you for your really kind words of appreciation. Oman is our second home, and we truly hope that we contribute to the economy, and all of us are working towards that. So thank you for that. Thank you for the appreciation on the World Congress, and thank you for reiterating the fact that we need to vote. So, and your presence, we are really honored by your presence. I hope that you do physically come to Oman very soon. Thank you so much. Now we will move on to our technical session. And before we begin with that, a few housekeeping rules. If you have any questions, please put them up in the Q&A box. We will take it up at the end of the session. It is now my proud privilege to introduce the eminent speaker of the day, CA Rajiv Saxena, who is a FCA, ICAI India, who is an FCMA from the ICMI Institute India, CPFA of the UK, EEPFM of the Harvard University, JFK School of Government. He also holds a certificate in PCSD from UN Systems Staff College and a certificate in GST from the ICAI India. CA Rajiv Saxena is an experienced professional with a career spanning more than 25 years in public and private sectors, delivering solutions such as public financial management reforms, budgeting, costing, financial management, risk assessments and frameworks, governance and ethics, and assurance engagements. CA Rajiv has more than 10 years of experience in training and capacity building. He has led teams for the development of training in accounting, internal control systems, costing, and financial management. He has trained accountants and non-finance teams of several organizations, government ministries, and NGOs. CA Rajiv has served as a member of various committees of professional organizations and communities, and a recipient of awards, recognition, recommendation, and appreciation for outstanding contribution to the profession. He has presented papers and participated in many prestigious events as a speaker. We are truly honored to have you here with us, sir, today, and we look forward to the event, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta ji, for this for your kind words and also inviting me for this session. It's really a privilege and an honor to be on a platform and share the dais with the luminaries like Ms. Nabila and the past president Shri Kamlesh ji. It's really a privilege to be speaking in front of such gentlemen and ladies, and I really thank Mesh ji and Shilpa ji and you for this kind invitation to be to me to speak in this conference. I will start my presentation without much further time. And is it visible now?
No, not yet.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible. But it is not in the presentation mode yet. Yeah.
I hope it's now there.
Yes, it is.
Thanks so much. So, dear distinguished guests, members of ICAI, participants, ladies and gentlemen, it's really an a privilege to be amongst you and speak on the contemporary and the relevant topic of managing the fraud risks during the pandemic and the development in auditing practices in the recent times, specifically in the times of pandemic, how the things have changed. I really appreciate and take this platform to acknowledge that, as Ms. Nabila said, that the pandemic has not only affected or impacted the health of the entire world, it has also impacted the economies, it has impacted the companies, it has impacted the operations. And as very much rightly said by Amresh ji also, that the expectations from the regulators have really increased manifold from the auditors and the auditing profession, some of which, as he rightly mentioned, are not even there in the standards which we have been following so far. There have been some updations, new releases of the standards by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, by the IAFAC, by other regulatory bodies across the world, some of which I will be dealing in the subsequent slides. So without further ado, I would like to take a cue and set the context of this presentation by few words from the present president of the ICAI and Nihal Jambusriya ji, who in the forward to the very recently released standards on forensic accounting and investigation standards, he has highlighted that with an increasing number of accounting, financial and loan irregularities that has been observed, the ICAI has acknowledged a pressing need for a proactive action in this area. As a first step, it has been recognized that forensic accounting examinations and investigations need to be conducted in a highly professional manner, in a way that evidence discovery can withstand the high level of the scrutiny which is subject to in a court of law. On a similar lines, Richard Chamber, who is the past president of the Institute of Internal Auditors, also has cautioned that anyone with the slightest understanding of fraud is familiar with the concept of the fraud triangle, which identifies pressure, opportunity, and rationalization as the key ingredients. The pandemic is fueling first the pressure in myriad ways, and as it impacts the economies, threatens the financial well-being of millions of organizations and billions of workers globally. So the theme of which I will be presenting the today's presentation is that where we all know that COVID-19 pandemic is not just a health crisis, has impacted the risk profiles, increased the fraud risk of doing business as usual. Businesses are not immune to it. The causes are twofold. One, the weakened control framework, as also pointed out by Kamlesh ji, that there are times when we are not there were times when we used to physically visit the clients, audit the clients. We used to get the information on site, but now we are not even operating from the offices. We are working from the homes. So the one reason of one impact of this is that the control mechanism has weakened, and there are also the reduced monitoring activities because of various reasons that those efficiencies in the online systems are not available in the BYOD era, where BYOD is where you actually bring your own devices. So those systems and processes of information technology which used to be available when we were in the proper offices using the office systems are not available. So in this session we shall be discussing and try to identify the diverse types of fraud risks arising from the pandemic, a few solutions for their management and mitigation, and the recent developments in the auditing process, in the auditing practices emerging from the pandemic crisis. I hope I am not too fast or too slow for this so far.
It's going good, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. So how I have structured the talk for today is that I have structured in 5 sub areas. Just a very quick overview we will have of the environment, which we all know, since we are all professionals, we are all chartered accountants, we are all in the senior positions. I will not take much of the time on the environment, but in any case, to understand the background, I believe I should be just having a few seconds or a minute on the environment also. Then we will talk about the increased impact of pandemic and the fraud risk during the last 22-24 months, some of the potential solutions to manage and mitigate these risks, and the developments in the auditing practices. Questions and discussion we will take up in the last 10-15 minutes or as the time may allow. But I would like to keep the session interactive, if even in between, if some interjection is required from the panelists, the other hosts, or any member attending, he or she is most welcome to do.
Thank you, sir. What I will do is, if somebody wants to speak it with voice, I will upgrade them to a panelist and they can have a discussion with you as well.
Yes, sure. And just a request, like before we move forward, that if since I'm presenting, so I may not be able to keep a tab on the questions which may be put up in the Q&A session. So if
I will take care of that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So any economy at any level, be it a local, regional, national, global, there are two wheels of economy. One is the public sector, one is the private sector. Public sector is that part of economy which is controlled by the state. The private sector of a country which is not under the direct control of the government. IIA's publication on the public sector definition mentions that public sector generally consists of at least 3 types of organizations: the government, agencies, and the public enterprises. Outside this 3-4 area, whatever the economic activity happens is by and large termed as the private sector. So we can have entities, organizations, setups by whatever structure or the names or the protocols, they may exist at basically the 4 levels: international, national, regional, and the local. The various organizational setups which can exist are given in that wheel on the right side. I will not take much time because everybody of us knows that there are central state governments, local bodies, private sector organizations, PPP joint ventures, international funding agencies. So let's move on to the environment, like where we have stakeholders interfaces. So here I have tried to just give a very short overview of how the economy has the interfaces with the people, the citizens, and the consumers. So we have G2B transactions, we have G2C transactions, we have B2C transactions, we have G2G transactions, we have B2B transactions. We all know what type of transactions fall within each of these brackets. So let me not take much time again on this slide as well. Now is the main area of, or the part of the presentation of the theme for today, which is the increased fraud risks during the pandemic. So I have tried to give some small facts and trivia which may be interesting for the attendees and the and everyone present here to be aware of. You know, I mean, you may be already aware of some of these, but still, you know, I thought of starting off with some areas where, you know, like highlighting few points which to give a magnitude of how the things have been, you know, at this stage. So according to a survey, you know, which was done by CIMA of UK, organizations worldwide are maybe perhaps losing as much as 7% of their annual turnover as a result of fraud. Again, corruption is estimated to cost the global economy in the range of about 1.5 trillion USD each year. Unfortunately, only a small percentage of losses which occur due to fraud are recovered by the organizations. There is a high percentage of frauds which are committed rather by the senior management and executives, instead of, you know, the perception that the frauds are generally perpetrated by the junior or the mid-level management. Fraud losses are not restricted to a particular sector or country. They are omnipresent, they are pervasive, they can happen in countries like USA also, they can happen in countries like Somalia and South Sudan as well. So there is no, you know, particular trend or way the frauds would happen in a particular region or a country. So how do the frauds happen and why do they happen? They're, broadly speaking, the frauds can be defined as any illegal activity and characterized by the actions which can fall in categories of deceit, concealment, or violation of trust. So these words are important for us to know, because frauds generally, when we hear the word fraud, we have what comes to our mind is, you know, some financial fraud, but fraud can be non-financial also. It can be some regulatory non-compliance of a high magnitude with a bad intent, so which falls under the violation of trust. So a fraud can be defined as an illegal act characterized by the deceit, concealment, or violation of trust. Usually it happens because of a poorly designed controls and weak governance which compromise the organization or a particular process. So I have tried to bracket it, the cause or the reasons or the impact in 4 categories: gaps in operational efficiency and effectiveness, growth which is not backed by the related controls, business environment, and the regulatory and compliances point of view. The gaps in operational efficiency and effectiveness, because like there can be some initiatives to reduce the cost without you know, parallel enforcement of the controls to ensure that while we are reducing the costs, we may be also weakening the controls, you know, as well. I have seen in many organizations where there is a lot of emphasis on cost reduction. There is no harm in having that. But my usual suggestion to those managements and organizations is don't focus more on the cost reduction, focus more on cost efficiency. So, because many there is one term as TCWG, those charged with the governance. They have a feeling, that we can save a penny here, we can save 2 pennies over there, and so it's a penny wise, pound foolish. Sometimes those decisions, when in for the want of saving few bucks here or there, we compromise the controls. And eventually get into a trap where we, at least if not suffer, at least be prone to the frauds happening in medium to bit time frames. Then usually organizations grow from in a very stepwise manner. Any organization which is an MNC, which is having operations running into billions and trillions, they would not be born with that type of a structure. They would be small entities at one point of time. They will then increase their sales with their with their quality of products, services, whatever. So what happens is that when a organization is small, a one-man army can control the entire systems, but as we grow, as we have multiple offices within the country in various cities, then we move out to other countries. We need to have growth which is having adequate controls to manage that entire show. So as one of, I don't know, I am not sure whether I should take names of the entities or the groups, but then I know of a Indian very big this conglomerate who have always been focused on their main or the core businesses only. There is no need to diversify in such a way that that I want to be in this industry also, I want to be in that sector also. There is no harm in doing that also, but whatever the size you are developing into, you should also have the related controls and with in place to with all your stakeholder interfaces, be it your employees, be it your clients, vendors, and the partners. Then there can be
Hello.
Not sure how many of us would have heard about it, but it comes up with the I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, actually we lost you for a minute, I think.
Yeah, because there was the light went, the electricity went out, so there was a change of the Wi-Fi. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so you were talking about the focus on core businesses. Actually, I wanted to ask is, do you recommend them to focus on core businesses or you recommend them to diversify?
I would recommend, see, there is no straightforward, that's a good question, and I have been asked it several times, and I am yet to an answer which is clear cut yes or no for it, but I would recommend the diversification only if the entrepreneur or the management, the top leadership, is able to put in place the relational controls in place. If the capacity of the organization is not to have that many controls, and those controls, when I when I say it, not means just the financial controls, it means the different controls, financial, non-financial, operational, the business related, the political, the external, the internal, factors which determine your, the business expansion in a particular region. So, like for example, if I'm having a business in a developed economy, so there would be already lot of controls which would be there in the environment. Whereas if I am trying to develop a business in a fragile economy, I mean, we have a crisis, we have a humanitarian crisis in one of our neighboring countries. So if I want to diversify in that region, I may have to think twice, So diversification is nice only if you are able to put the adequate controls for that. So that's my advice to the businesses, that diversify only if you are able to put, if you are able to handle it. Otherwise, just focus on the on your core business.
Thank you.
I don't know whether I was able to answer it properly, but then.
Of course, yes, definitely.
So, like in one of the reports which was published about 4 or 5 years back, but is as much relevant in the present year as well, by the ACFE, the Global Fraud Survey. It has identified the government and the public administration sector as the second most represented sector after the banking and the financial service industry for the occurrence of the fraud risks. I'm sure Ms. Nabila would be able to identify with this particular statement because she comes from that particular sector. So, there are, the frauds which happen in each sector, but globally, as per the survey, the government and public administration sector has been identified to be the highest in the fraud occurrence. The reasons are quite obvious. One, because it is the one which deals with the public at large, not, not as much. Whereas the private sector is just dealing with a particular set of customers in a particular area or the locality or a region. Similarly, the controls perception, is not as high as in the government sector as it happens in the private sector. So the vulnerabilities, which I will be talking in a subsequent slide, all point towards these sectors to be highly prone. So there is one, a fraud triangle which identifies 3 reasons, or for an individual to act unethically and perpetrate fraud. One, there should be incentive or pressure to engage in the misconduct. There should be an opportunity, because even if there is an incentive or a pressure, there should also be an opportunity to commit a fraud. And then the ability to rationalize or justify the actions. Each of these words which I've just mentioned, I am sure everybody would be able to relate to, what I'm trying to say, that, like there should be an incentive, there should be an opportunity, and there is a, in the fraud perpetrator's eyes, there is a justification for the action. So far, so good. Are there any questions in the chat box, or you're on mute?
One question from CA Bhartesh.
Mr. Bhartesh Pujari is asking, sir, can you please guide us to avoid any fraud in online banking transactions?
Yeah, so I will try to answer that question in a subsequent slide, because there are some examples and steps which I have tried to elaborate. So I hopefully that will be answered in one of the subsequent slides, which is not relevant, which is relevant not only for the banking transactions but also for the other sectors where there is an interface between the customers and the organization. So I will just keep it that question pending for a subsequent slide. So when we talk about the like, is that okay? I mean, if I keep that question for pending for another slide.
Yeah, sure. You can take it when it comes, or we can keep it at the last also.
Yeah, sure. So like I have tried to have a like here in this slide, I am talking about the vulnerabilities at the strategic level. Now, what has happened, especially in the pandemic era, the last 22-24 months, that focus is more on the health provision rather than the budgeting and the controls. There is a decrease in the tax and the non-tax revenues to the nations, which is resulting in the less amounts for the MEL. MEL is monitoring, evaluation, and learning. There is a fragility element which has entered the financial management and the discipline in the financial management. There is a lesser audit support, as in the start of the session, Kamlesh ji was also mentioning that there is of course a market difference between when we used to do auditing physically and now when when some of the elements are happening remotely or even in a hybrid mode. So there is a less of the audit support which is available. There is weaker management of the funds and the investments. Many of the rules and procedures have been simplified, like especially in the governments and the sector and in the health sector, like be it public or the private sector. If you are for the hospitals, for the pharma companies, for those dealing with the vaccination, with the vaccines, so many of the rules, procedures have been simplified so that the procurement can happen faster, the delivery of the healthcare can happen, the people who are getting unfortunately affected by the virus can be cured faster. So various things have been simplified. However, the flip side of this is that the people with those, like this has, as I spoke in the previous slide, that if for some of the people to engage in misconduct and also have given them an opportunity to explore that incentive and try to make money out of it. I mean, what happened, in our country in April, May is known to most of us. Like there was shortage of medicines, there was shortage of oxygen, and like there were people who were trying to make money out of it. There are also delays in the treasury operations, that because of the people not well, they are not able to report to their duties, whether physically or virtually. There are people who are working from home, so there can be limitations on the technology available at their homes to be able to do their duties properly. So there can be the delays in the treasury operations. I mean, when I say treasury, it can be both private and the public. I mean, in terms of the funds flow, in terms of the vendor disbursements, in terms of payments to be made for the various operations. So what's happening is that the money circulation is getting slower, because of which again some of the functions or the processes can get impacted. Then accounting reconciliations, unfortunately, is considered to be, oh, we will do it at a later stage. Just let me focus more on my business, or like whatever it is. So I will try to do my reconciliations, my bank reconciliations, and like in our income, since the participants are all chartered accountants, we all know that in our when we were all doing our articleship, the first thing, or the first important thing which we were told about was to focus on the bank reconciliations. That's where the many frauds happen. Then again, there are gaps in the HR management systems, in the IFMAs, due to shortage of people manning the functions. Real-time and accurate reporting and aiding the decision support operations are all impacted. So these are some of the strategic vulnerabilities which have fueled the rise or the spike in the frauds happening. There are some tactical vulnerabilities as well, which happens in the reporting, technology, operations, capacity. Earlier when we used to operate from the offices, we used to have, those applications available to us, the technology of it, and the technology available to us to use various applications, which may not work if we are working from home and on our own devices. Again, the availability of the data from the servers, when we used to operate from the offices, from the proper offices, and when we are working from home, non-availability or the inability due to the technological reasons. If I'm using a Wi-Fi of my office, that would be of a higher speed as compared to what I use at my home. So some of the data transfer may not happen as fast, or it may not even happen. It may not even happen at all. So those things have resulted in the delays of the reporting. There are operational reasons as well, the processing time, the real-time consolidation. There is a capacity reason as well. The human resource management, which used to be available till few months back, and now I read few days back or some weeks back, in the Western world, people are, instead of rejoining the offices or their duties, are rather resigning. There is a labor shortage happening in the Western countries. So, those capacity constraints are also happening. There is a reduction in the records and the audit trails. There is inadequate version controls which is available. Multiple vendors and service level agreement management is not also happening the way it's supposed to happen. So these are some tactical vulnerabilities which have happened during the pandemic times. This slide talks more about a combination of what we just spoke in the previous two slides. So I will not spend time on this slide, rather move on to the next topics. So these are some examples, of the frauds which have these are some examples of international reports which have come on the frauds during the pandemic. So there is a massive uptick in the cyber attacks through the pandemic. According to the public sector counter fraud journal, as recent as July 2021, total fraud losses to the tune of 42 billion USD were reported. There were 47% of the companies had experienced a fraud in the past 24 months. The bribery and corruption are amongst the top reasons for the occurrence of frauds. Then, one such study found that the number of successful cyber attacks is skyrocketed across the US by 600% and across the globe by 300%. Then insurance frauds have also have spiked up during the pandemic. 27% who were surveyed said that insurance frauds have increased during the pandemic. There is an overall increase in the insurance fraud investigations after the onset of COVID-19, with 55% of the respondents confirming that their professional activities related to fraud fighting have either increased during the pandemic. Insurance frauds are typically committed at a time of applications or claims and have a cost of approximately 450 billion INR each year to the insurance companies. This is a survey report which was done by the Insurance Institute of India. Then there are other, the risks which help in the happening of a fraud, which are social media risks. There are new opportunities which also have been identified by the fraudsters. So these include one of the opportunities, the benefit fraud. There are many fake claims which have been lodged for the for these schemes which were implemented for the losses during the COVID-19. And of course, the corruption and bribery has always, and in the pandemic has increased. So this again, the findings reveal that respondents acknowledge that bribery is one of the central element of fraud. These are some specific examples which happened, the UBF chairman has mentioned that there is a serious threat to society and that must be addressed, and there is Middle East is facing cyber pandemic as COVID exposes cyber, the vulnerabilities in the security. This is the UAE's cyber chief statement. In the Oman also, 58% of people dealt with the fraudsters who were trying to steal money, card details, online credentials in 2020. This is a survey which was done by Kaspersky. That is probably the from where that question also came up. Why, how we can mitigate the online banking transaction frauds. There are a few other examples. I will just skip this slide because I will share this slide with the CP committee of the Muscat chapter. They can share it with the attendees. So anyone interested can read the examples from the slide. I have now we move on to the main or the next important area, which are, and I have tried to mix the both areas which deal with the potential solutions and the developments in the auditing practices, because somewhere I felt, that these are interrelated, will have some interlinkages. So to save the time in repeating the same point again, I have tried to merge these two areas. I hope the attendees would not mind that. So we are halfway through our this presentation. Is it possible, Sangeeta ji, to have a 2 minutes short bio break?
Yeah, of course. You can take a break.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll play. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you please continue.
Yeah, no, we can play the promotional video once more.
Yeah, please do that. I mean, I will just since we are half through and we are moving on to the the solutions and the developments in the auditing practices, I think that the participants also take some time to digest whatever I've just said, and 2 minutes, and then we will talk about the solutions and developments.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta.
Thank you, sir.
Muscat chapter proudly supports World Congress of Accountants.
World Congress of Accountants, popularly known as Olympics of Accountancy Profession, is held every 4 years under the banner of International Federation of Accountants, worldwide organization for accounting profession.
This would be the first time ever that India would be hosting this prestigious event.
It is a proud moment, not only for the accounting fraternity in India, but for the fraternity in South Asia, as India is the first country among the South Asian countries to hold the World Congress.
ICAI has achieved recognition as a premier accounting body in India. Today, it is one of the largest accounting bodies in the world.
World Congress of Accountants is the most prestigious global event of professional accountants, wherein 6,000 delegates from 130 member countries of IFAC will exchange their views with other accounting and finance professionals around the world.
On international front, ICAI is represented at International Federation of Accountants, Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants, Chartered Accountant Worldwide, and South Asian Federation of Accountants.
We will get an opportunity to hear to world-class speakers and leaders of finance and business community and interact with the accounting and finance professional from.
So you can continue.
Okay. Yeah, thanks so much. So, I hope the slide is visible.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Oh, just a minute.
Ms. Nabila, would you like to add your comments on
Yeah, it would be great to hear from her also.
You're on mute,
in
Miss Nabila.
I wasn't listening to the previous slides fully, so I'm not able to give a comment. But in the next one, I would, inshallah.
No, basically he took your name and he mentioned that frauds occur a lot in the public institutions in comparison to private bodies. Would you have any comment on that?
I would be able to only comment in
Okay,
Oman.
no worries.
No, I would be able to comment only in Oman. It's I don't see it happening a lot in the public sector within Oman as compared to the private sector. I've been in the internal audit for a while. It was once in the past 6-7 years in the public sector, it had occurred. So it's very minimal in at least in OIA. But I hear that there are some frauds that are happening in other ministries and stuff. But I cannot give a comparison with the private sector.
Thanks for your insights.
Thank you.
Over to you, Rajiv ji.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So in this in this part 2 of the presentation, we will talk about the potential solutions and the development in the auditing practices. So how do we really manage and mitigate frauds? There are 3 ways. I mean, where we see first of all, we need to understand that mitigating the frauds is not the responsibility of the auditor. It is for the management and those charged with the governments to have a proper control mechanism and in place, and to have those systems and practices which tend to mitigate the frauds. And why I use the word tend, because no matter how much controls or the mechanisms or the processes we may have, we will still have some frauds happening. There is no way really, in my humble opinion, that we can have 100% fraud-free environment. So how do we manage and mitigate frauds? Only the severity of the fraud can be controlled and not 100% eliminate. And not 100% elimination can be there. So we, first of all, there is a 3 lines of defenses we have. One is the prevention, of course, that we need to have processes which should decrease the motive, restrict opportunity, and limit the ability for the potential fraudsters to rationalize their actions. We talked about the fraud triangle. We talked about that there should be a existence of a motive, there should be an opportunity and a justification for the fraudster to commit a fraud. So one is the prevention. However, having said that, there would be some instances where the frauds would happen. So we need to have the controls which should be in place that will highlight the outliers and the occurrences of a fraud in a timely manner, so that it cannot explode in a bigger scenario. And the third line of defense is to have a response, to have actions which we need to have to respond to those frauds. So we need to have a strategy. We need to have a fraud. We need to have an anti-fraud strategy. We need to have the those. If the fraud has happened, that means there was an incentive to commit fraud. So there should be a disincentive for it to not to be repeated. So we need to have enough provisions for the penalties and the punishments for the people who have committed the fraud, so that the others can have an example that, okay, if this happens, this is the outcome of how we will face that in the event the fraud is identified and the people who have committed have been identified. So we need to have 3 lines of defense: prevention, detection, and the response. So various solutions we should have, or we should focus upon are the business and the functional process reviews, organizational rearrangements, budget classifications and chart of accounts in place for the proper accounting and identification. We should have a proper legal framework for emergency operations, capacity building, monitoring evaluation, emergency procurement rules, and IT integrity checks. And let me emphasize here that these all things which I have spoken or will be speaking are to be done on a regular basis. It's not that, okay, we have put in the controls at one point of time and they are forever. They need to be evolved with the passage of time. We need to keep reviewing them at a periodic intervals to see whether those controls are working in the first place and whether they need any improvements. So these are from the management point of view. Still, as I said, that the fraud prevention is not the role of the auditors. Still, there is a role of internal auditors, specifically for the fraud risk management. So how do we do it? So we need to have a proper conduct of audit. We should follow the various auditing practices, auditing standards. We should follow a proper processing time of the transactions. We should review the interfaces. We should have the knowledge of the legislations which are in place for the financial reporting. We should know what is to be reported, to whom it is to be reported. We should also deploy proper data analytics and tools to suitably conduct audits and report on frauds if we come to know of it during the auditing process. We also need to have our capacity in place. We need to hire and deploy competent and qualified resources and teammates deployment. For example, if I am doing a audit of an automobile sector, I need not only just deploy chartered accountants, I should also have technical experts if required. So there are various international standards of auditing, which are issued by the various regulatory bodies, including IFAC, which is the International Federation of Accountants. So we have ISA 240, we have ISA 315, which talks about how we should be identifying, how we should be assessing and the risks of material misstatements due to fraud. This is all, we should keep. I mean, this is something very elementary for any chartered accountant to keep in consideration while performing his duties as an auditor, or not an auditor by virtue of appointment, and he or she is on the other side of the table as the CFO or as an accountant. He should still be, applying the due diligence when papers come to him or her accounting purposes. There is an IIA position paper also available, which talks about the fraud and internal audit. And it says that, internal auditors must have sufficient knowledge to evaluate the risk of fraud and consider wherever the fraud risk is present within the businesses and respond appropriately by auditing the controls of that area, evaluating the potential for the occurrence of fraud and how the organization manages the fraud risks. Having said all this, we also need to distinguish the between audit from the fraud investigation. Internal auditor per se is not required to investigate. Something very elementary which is taught to us in the auditing paper also when we are studying for our chartered accountancy, that auditor is a watchdog and not a bloodhound. So we are not really tasked to do a investigation. Investigation in itself is a very specific task, and not really, I mean, it's a, if I may loosely say so, that it's a level higher than internal audit. So, but having said this, internal auditors should exercise due professional care and consider the extent of work which is needed to achieve the engagement objectives and the related complexity. At least the internal auditor should flag off the red areas, those areas where potentially the frauds can happen. Now, there was one question earlier by one of the members, and like perhaps here it can be answered yet, like in the recent times, not during the pandemic only, but last several years, like probably 10-15 years or about a decade or 1 or 2 decades, the use of artificial intelligence and data analytics has been in high demand as a tool for fraud investigation. So there are tools which are available to, like, if you now there is a ways where the banking industry uses the face recognition. They use your thumb impressions to identify the person who is doing the transaction is actually the person who is authorized to do so. So like, and then there are backend operations which happen, like which require testing the entire population and for the to identify the outliers and the fraudulent transactions. Just test you.
Sir, you are muted.
For all the participants, if you have any questions, you can type it in the Q&A chat box, and we'll take it up at the end of the session. If you want, we can also add you or ask you to directly ask the question to the presenter.
You may raise your hand and we can allow you to speak as well.
So sorry if I just had to, there was an emergency, so I just had to leave for a minute. So sorry.
No worries.
So is it, yeah.
Your screen, you'll need to share your screen again, I guess.
Sometimes the technology is also not helpful. I mean, where is new share?
There is a request from the members to share the presentation with
yes, and maybe I will be sharing the this presentation to you and Sangeeta, I mean, and to the Muscat chapter, and like probably you can share the because I would not have the email IDs of everybody.
So yeah, we will.
It's circulated to the entire team. Thank you.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yeah, but it's not in the presentation mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
So, like we were talking about the use of the AI and the data analytics for the fraud investigation, which helps in using those tools and various mechanisms to identify the fraud. Like I was talking about the face recognition, I was talking about the thumb impressions, and I was also talking even these days, if you wish to perform any activity which is related to the banking transactions. The plus point is that many banks now, they allow these online transactions. Like you can I mean, there was a time when as a child, I used to watch my parents going to the bank every time they need to actually withdraw the money, or they need to have a passbook updation, or for a checkbook issuance. For the money, we still need to go to the money and to the bank, but for various non-financial transactions like the passport, I mean, now we have e-statements. We have we can also request for the checkbooks online. And even so basically the only time I visit a branch of the bank is the time when I need to actually withdraw the hard cash. Otherwise, even for the fund transfers, I mean, online and facility is available. Even IMPS, NEFT, RTGS, and I mean, in the recent times, even in India also, the window for the RTGS and NEFT have been made 24/7. Even on the holidays also, I can transfer the money. I mean, in earlier times, if I issue a check, on say a day before the weekend, so it would be presented only on the next working day. And suppose if there are 2-3 holidays in between, the check clearance to the payee would actually happen in 7 to 8 or 10 days. But now instantaneously I can transfer the money to the payee through IMPS, or through or if the amount is higher than through RTGS or NEFT. So all these activities are available to us online. But for that activities also, there are checks and the double checks which are available. Like even if I enter my the password and the username, they would send me the OTP on the registered mobile only. So I have to enter that OTP to complete that transaction. So these are some of the tools or the measures which the banks take usually to prevent the fraud. But still the frauds happen because of many times, sorry to say, but due to our own negligence. I mean, we almost every second or third day, or at least in a month, even today also, I after so many years of online transactions, I get those messages or emails from the bankers, not to share the the CVV or but still we keep on sorry, my computer is giving me some, it's getting hanged. Just give me a sec.
For last 1 minute only, sir. We could see the screen, but your voice was not clear.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, you are able to, I am sure you would be able to see my screen, but I'm not, I mean, are my slides moving? No.
Yeah, they are.
But I cannot see it. I mean, it is perhaps moving. I don't know why it's happening. Just give me a minute. I will solve this. I mean, I am stuck on slide number 24. Which slide is appearing at?
We are seeing the 26th one.
The role of internal auditors. Yeah, now we can see it's moving.
It's moving at, I mean, you can see the slides moving.
Now we are on 27, role of investigators, forensic accounting.
But to me, I don't know why, but to me it is still showing 24 only. Just give me.
You want to stop sharing and then restart again?
Yeah, maybe I will stop sharing. I will stop sharing and then start again. Yes, please. Is it visible? Is it visible?
Yeah, it is visible, but not in presentation mode. Yeah, now it is.
I think
slide number 24 can be seen.
Yeah. I think from my side there were two sharings which were happening. I don't know why there were two. That's why I think the laptop might have got confused. But it may have got a little overdose of fraud. So my laptop was doing a fraud. Okay, so we talked about these ISAs and we talked about the IIA position paper. We talked about the role of internal auditor. We also distinguished the audit from the fraud investigation. We were talking about AI and data analytics and the banking transactions. Recently, about I think in August 2021, ICAI has issued a compendium on forensic accounting and investigation standards. A very rightly timed initiative, I must say. And I'm personally aware of some of the distinguished members of the DAAB, the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board of ICAI, who have been part of this initiative. And I take this opportunity also to compliment in issuing, like in the times of the COVID-19. I mean, it's a very timely publication from the ICAI, and if members are not aware of, then I would recommend that they should at least download it from. I mean, it's available on the ICAI website, and it's right now there are 20 standards which have been issued. Like they are on these series. These are on the standards on the on key concepts, engagement management, executing assignments, specialized areas, reporting. Some of these standards, like I'm sure that members who are in the Oman and in the GCC region, even if they are employed in private or the public sector, internally, I don't know what's the profile of the members over there, but many of them may be heading the internal audit departments of the various companies or the ministries. So, and so these standards can be very helpful for them, when they are leading or trying to conduct engagements which have elements of fraud investigation. So these are some, so I will skip this slide as of now. I mean, and that's a background I just wanted to share since we are talking on the fraud topic. There are some other publications also which are issued by the ACFE, which is the Code of Professional Standards, which I believe are on the similar lines as the compendium of our own institute, but then also they are few more standards which are there on the ACFE websites. We can refer them also. There's a very good publication by the government counter fraud profession of UK. It's a department of the HMRC. I mean, Her Majesty government, it's a UK government publication, Government Counter Fraud Professional Standards, a very well written book, which we should be aware of, even if we are not practicing in investigations, but it would be helpful for the members to read it. Examples which I have taken, like where statutorily also as accountants or as auditors or as fraud investigators, we may be required to support, be part of the investigation, or even actually report to the departments which are in, like in India we have EOW, the Economic Offences Wing. We have Enforcement Directorate, where some of the chartered accountants do provide their professional services. So similarly, under the Companies Act also, there is a Serious Fraud Investigation Office in India, which is under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. There is which is quite similar to the Serious Fraud Office of the UK. In India, our laws are generally in sync with the UK, based upon the colonial times. But so based upon, even the Companies Act 2013, there is a particular section 143(12), which deals with the fraud and the fraud investigation. So, and the SFIO is an institution, or actually it's an autonomous office which is set up under the MCA. It deals with the serious frauds. It has it came in the early years of 2000 and 2002, I believe, 2003 rather, and I take a little pride in saying that, in one of the earliest investigations which SFIO did in India, I was a part of the financial team who was helping the SFIO from the organization in the organization in which I was working at that time. I was part of the financial team who was providing the SFIO the support in terms of the financial investigation. I then, about a decade later, 2013, they had piloted a new project in which they wanted to develop a software based upon the financial and the non-financial ratios to identify the fraudulent companies and the potential fraud areas which may happen in India. So they wanted to have a sort of a pre-warning type of thing. They wanted to identify the outliers. It was a project which was dreamed by the then Minister of Corporate Affairs. Unfortunately, it did not see the light of the day, because after a few months the government was changed, and then probably the concept was shelved. But it was a very good learning experience for me with SFIO, because we developed a hell lot of the ratios. We had identified 2-3 sectors, which included the MLM also, in which we basis the ratios of the. The only constraint from the data point of view was that we were aware of the information through the ROC filings, but now a lot of water has flown. As Kamlesh sir was also mentioning, technology has advanced a lot in India. Also, we now have integration of the GST, income tax, banking sectors. All these portals are now interlinked. Even when I file my own income tax return, so it has a column. I get to know how much is the amount which I reported in the on the GST portal. So all those things are interlinked. So I'm sure if that project would have been there at this stage, it would have really helped the SFIO to identify or at least have a pre-warning of the frauds which may be happening. And then in the Oman and the GCC area, like, I mean, there are some laws which are there for the cyber crime laws, but data protection policy, I believe, is not still there. I'm open to be updated or be corrected by people, by my fellow CAs who are in Oman, if I'm not right on that pointer. But as far as I know, data protection policy is still to be implemented in Oman. Then there are some anti-commercial fraud law which has been passed by the Council of the Oman, by the lower house, which is in 1920, and it then your neighboring country Kuwait has endorsed the bill 2019. I think this law is for the entire GCC. Then there are some penal provisions for the crimes and punishments which are there in the penal law of the Oman, which was implemented in 2018 for various frauds and which fall under the various categories: financial and the non-financial and non-financial. Then there are some auditing considerations which need to be also. I'm now talking about the auditing considerations. So IFSC and ICAI have been also very much regularly issuing various guidelines for the how we as chartered accountants in different roles, as employees, as CFOs, as managers finance, as manager taxation, as auditors, as internal auditors, as the external auditors, have our responsibility and the duties towards the identification of the frauds and for the compliance of the laws and regulations. IESBA of IFSC already issued the no-pillar guidelines, this one, non-compliance with the laws and the regulations, which have been adopted in the Code of Ethics of the ICAI also, but they are presently on hold until further notice. Because the new Code of Ethics, which was adopted by the ICAI last year, there were 2-3 provisions, including this no-pillar also, which were put on hold due to COVID times. But this, I believe, is something which will strengthen the role of the accounting profession against the non-compliances. Then, there's a discussion paper of the IFSC which is available online also, which supports that recommends that the focus should be on providing the leadership and initiatives focused on audit as a valued service, narrowing the expectation gap, taking an evidence-based approach to changes to the ISAs, exploring the need and the potential development of assurance standards. Why I have highlighted all these things is that, one, this is a very recent discussion paper, and like in the earlier slides when we were talking about the capacity building, the knowledge of the auditors, and the expertise, so these pointers are also in terms of or in aligned to those needs, where we need to develop our own competencies and capacities to actually respond to frauds. As I mentioned in the previous slide, there is one section under the Companies Act of India 143(12), and which talks about how to report on the frauds. This is more on the corporate, the frauds happening in the corporate sector and those entities which are basically companies and are registered under the Companies Act. But then the guidance note or the points which are mentioned there can very well be used or be applied in engagements which we may be doing for the fraud investigation or the forensic accounting, or even as internal auditors to flag the red areas. So, how do we actually respond to the frauds during the COVID times? I mean, what I'm talking right now is in any case applicable in the pre-COVID times and the post-COVID times. There is nothing new. I mean, nothing. It's not a 360-degree change which has happened in the auditing considerations. It's basically more of a re-emphasizing what was already known to us, and also to focus on those areas which have high vulnerabilities. So, as preparers, the considerations which we should have is, we should be able to answer some of the questions like how to assess whether the impacts of the COVID-19 are material to the entity or not. When to adjust the financial statements, including where events continue to develop after the reporting. Like we had a concept of the prior period reporting, post period reporting, till that's the signing of the report. So this point is basically, but last 20 or 22 months have also had a strong impact on the continuity of the many business entities. I mean, we know even from our personal experiences also, in almost all regions, many businesses have shut down, I mean, because of non-availability of the funds, their ability to sustain themselves during the lockdowns. Many businesses have not been able to sustain themselves. So that is where we need to also give emphasis when we are auditing the financial statements, or we are preparing the financial statements, when there is a need to adjust the financial statements where events have happened or have developed after the closure of the period of the reporting, which are impactful on the continuity or the material or the materiality to the entity. So, and what other disclosures which are required from the entity in the financial statements and the notes and the reports which accompany from the management to those financial statements. As auditors, we also have to ensure that have the TCWG, those charged with the governance, performed appropriate risk assessment procedures and assess the impact of COVID-19 on the entity. As like this is something which is related to the previous point, this one. Are the disclosures in the financial report sufficient? And if not, what are the implications for the auditor's report, which is related to this point? And we also need to see that, like, as again, many points which I had in the presentation were very nicely taken up by Kamleshji, and he also mentioned, about that the travel bans have really affected the audit personnel. So there is a potential scope limitation to our performance. So these are the impacts on the audit considerations which have happened during the COVID times. According to a recent ACCA's audit impact report, again, they have, it identifies 8 major areas where auditors need to consider or reconsider how their work has been or will be affected by the pandemic. These 8 areas are identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement, point of concern for the frauds, Auditors' response to assess risks, another area where we need to ensure that the risks, how they have changed or have transformed in the last 1.5 years, and whether we have sufficient information to reassess them and to identify that, many of us would have done the EWRM, the enterprise wide risk management. We would have prepared those statements of high, moderate, and medium, and the low risks. So especially those risks which were earlier identified as medium or low, do they need to be reclassified as moderate or high? That is something which we need to respond to. We need to also respond to the audit evidences. How have we ensured that we have enough evidences to form the opinion which we want to? Earlier, physically, if I am the auditor of the say the Muscat of the Muscat chapter, I will physically travel to your office. I will get all the information. I will get all the accounting supportings. But if today I'm to audit the chapter, there is a there is this limitation on the travel. There is a limitation of how you would really transfer the data to me. So whether I have been able to get enough or sufficient audit evidences. Then accounting estimates, especially in those areas which have impacted the sustainability of the entity in the COVID times. Then the subsequent events, because in between the period closure and the signing and our audit and the signing of the report, are there events which have impacted the the organization itself? Going concern, modification to the audit report opinion if required, and emphasis of matter paragraph in the auditor's report. I have some other so this report also has mentioned about the some ISAs which include 315, 330, 500, 540, which deals with identifying and the assessing the risk of material misstatements and the audit evidence. All these areas which we talked about. So we need to comply with those ISAs and the the other pronouncements by the institute or all of the regulatory authorities of the region in which we are based. Oman, India, or the other GCC countries, or wherever we are working for. So I think we are also nearing the time limit which was given to me, and the area is so vast that we could have actually 4 or 5 days session on this. And auditing is an area which is just as auditing sometimes becomes a never-ending exercise. We are there for days and days, and and so talking on an area such as the fraud risk and the developments which have happened in the post-pandemic times is something which I'm sure at least me, I can speak for at least 15 hours more, but that much of the time is obviously continuously is not available. We can have another session. We can have probably some more sessions on it, but in whatever the time I had, and I hope I was able to justify and talk about some of the touch points, at least, which the members who are attending this session may get benefit from, and they should explore more about it. And just I would like to presentation God we trust, rest all we audit. So we we have trust utmost in the God. Anything else which comes to our eyes, we need to audit it. Be it any transaction. So that is how our, like that is what we have been taught also during our internship. So we come to the last segment of this presentation, where if there is any questions which are there, or any member who would like to have a discussion, I would be more keen to have because I am myself a very junior person. I don't know much about the profession. I am just a young professional of 25 years of experience, so I'm still learning. So I always believe that if I tell you one point, there will be always 2 points which you will tell me. So that is how I learn. And I would take one cue from Unmesh ji, like he was talking about that when Kamlesh ji became CA in 82, he was born in 82. I was 7 years in 82, and when Kamlesh ji became the president of institute, I was 7 years into the profession. So so Shilpa ji, Sangeeta ji, if there are any questions.
Shilpa's here. Rajiv ji, thank you for your presentation. I love the way, I love the ending quote, in God we trust and everything else we audit.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. I'm going to open up the Q&A box. Of course, we would be very happy if we get some inputs from Ms. Nabila ji and CA Kamlesh, if they could share their viewpoints. In the meantime, in the Q&A box, there is a question about it would be good if some real case or a real fraud incident you could discuss.
Yeah. So, I gave some, I just saw that question. I think that was at a time when I was starting off with the second part of the presentation. So I think there was a slide. Yeah, my laptop has again.
That's okay. Anyway, you will be sharing the slides with us, right?
Yeah, so there are some examples which I gave. Like in India, and also of the Southeast Asia, about the PPE kits. There was a some frauds which have happened, especially in the second wave of the in which the under quality, the quality, the under quality of the equipments were sold off during the pandemic. There was a there was a fraud which happened in US for the pension funds. People who unfortunately succumbed to the virus, like their pension funds. There was a particular person who siphoned off a lot of money. If my slide can just move, this one. Yeah, this one. I'm talking about the relief scheme. A man from Texas has pleaded guilty for charges of as much as 24 million USD for the relief fund fraud. Where the pensions and the other benefits were siphoned off. Through unauthorized transactions. So this is as recent as I think it was identified in December 2020. So then this is what I was mentioning about in the PPE and the medical equipment fraud which happened. So there was a there were as many as 400 FIRs have been filed, and over as many as 90 people have been charge sheeted, who have been arrested actually for selling items which were of the quality not as per the standard, or just the fake items, So there was a also the black marketing of oxygen cylinders, medicines, beds, So, and what action has been taken is that as of now the police has frozen 214 accounts, and the amount roughly at the time of the report, it was there in the media, was about INR 6 million. And so these are some of the real life examples which I had. So in this I know that like how it happened, how it was happening was that there were so many. Technology has its own advantages, but has some disadvantages also. As informally, what we also say now, the WhatsApp university. So and there were so many those messages which were floating in the month of April, May this year. Like, okay, pay this much amount, you will get oxygen cylinder within 2 hours. And because oxygen cylinder, which otherwise would say would be for say 15,000 rupees, was sold for an amount 10 times the original price. And when and those times the people were so panicky, and for the right reasons, that they would not mind paying that much amount. The person would say, you transfer that money first, then I will send it to you, and then after that the phone will get switched off after the transfer would happen. So that is the way this particular fraud happened. So again, a sort of a pointer to us that we need to have the proper controls and the mechanisms where these frauds, the frauds have happened, but we need to identify the perpetrators and bring them to justice.
Thank you so much, Rajiv ji. Ms. Nabila, would you like to?
Yeah, I would like to first thank Rajiv for the insightful speech today. I'd like to thank him. I think he highlighted a lot of areas that we need to keep an eye on, and controls areas that we need to focus on during these times to avoid fraud, and as well tools that we need to adapt to avoid certain things that he highlighted in the examples to happen in our organization, in our companies as well. So thanks a lot, Ranjiv, for the speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And like, it was very insightful to have you and Mr. Williams on also. And I really felt, it was really a privilege to have you also there, to have your words, and obviously from Mr. Vikramse, and your presence, Mr. Vikramse's presence, and all the other Muscat chapter members. And it was really a privilege to be speaking in, speaking in front of Mr. Vikramse is itself, when I got the, the final poster from Sangeeta ji, and when I saw his name, I was thinking, should I be really speaking in front of him? In front of a tall personality like him, and in front of you, ma'am. So, but that was a sort of a encouragement and the motivation. It's always a learning pleasure for to be speaking in front of such an august people, forum.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your modesty also, Rajiv ji. May I request CA Kamlesh ji to add some of his points as well?
No, at the outset, of course, I must frankly admit that brilliant presentation, Rajiv, and this is the age of youngsters. And
thank you so much, sir.
I'm an ancient whatever You can call me an antique piece or whatever you want to call me. So anyway, but coming on the subject, I think the relevance of, the march of technology where the entire world is moving has also increased the cybersecurity risks, which are bringing in newer kind of frauds all the time. And the pace at which digitization is taking place is extremely important. What Rajiv has, articulated, that we ought to have controls in place and we ought to be, more vigilant and careful. So both from the point of view of an organization, we should be, be careful of those risks. And those are real risks. I mean, we all can, admit that we are very safe when we do browsing and do banking transactions and online shopping and whatnot. But believe you me that each and every individual on this earth, one day or the other, is going to be hacked. And so it's a reality which we are living in. It's a real world we are living in. And the kind of frauds which, are happening today, you will forget the frauds which used to happen in the past. And therefore, the relevance of what Rajiv spoke about, both from the organization point of view and as well as auditor's point of view. What do you do as an auditor? How do you, address those issues? And that is, my core of the, at the outset when I said that, expectations of the society. The expectation of the society also is, rising, that the auditor must cover frauds as well. Though in a say, if you're doing a financial audit for that matter, you have a very limited time in which you're supposed to turn around and, certify those financial information, whatever is given in the financial statements. And so therefore, our primary goal as an auditor is not supposed to be detecting frauds, but it is to certify those financial. But the society's expectations are now different. They want that no fraud should remain and that the auditor must, point out frauds, blow whistle on frauds, etc. So there, of course, I've been sharing this on public platforms as well, that if the society's expectation has risen, you can't cover it in the normal, financial statement audits, the frauds. But as society, we may have a special set of auditors called the forensic auditors, whose specialization is to, attack on the frauds and what has, taken place. So maybe companies above a particular size or organizations above a particular size try and put in place that forensic audit as a mandatory thing, so that, the frauds also can be detected, unearthed, reported, and it should not be a burden on the auditor, because auditor is always at a threat that if some fraud remains, it will be questioned. So, I mean, those are some thoughts which I had, but again, to compliment Rajiv, brilliant presentation, and both Unmesh and Rajiv, it's not the age, this is your age today. And technology is your subject, not my subject, because as I said, I'm an antique now. So basically it's your age, and therefore I'm sure you will outshine all of us.
You are that very kind of you actually. I mean, you and you have been a very source of motivation for us, and I mean that's. I mean, Shilpa was actually saying it for me, but it's rather your modesty that you have, like the ways, the words you have used. That, I mean, you have always been very inspiring to me, for most of the members, and I mean, from you only that we have learned so much that we are able to speak. I mean, at least me, like you must not be, I mean, I know you, but you may not be knowing me. But then, I mean, when you were the president, and I was in those years in 1998 when you joined the council, that was the year when I completed my articleship, so you were one of those, the luminaries of the profession whom I actually, really looked upon to, that, okay, this is where I need to be, so, I mean, that is your modesty rather.
You're our guiding star. Gopalji just mentioned in the chat box that you were instrumental in supporting and forming the Muscat CP study circle initially. So thank you, sir, for all your support.
So just one final comment, if I may be permitted to make.
Yes, please.
I extend, welcome to Ms. Nabila as well for the World Congress of Accountants. I mean, I would request you if you can, personally make it. We will all be, obliged and grateful.
Thank you. I'll try.
Have you, and maybe we could organize a session also with you on, your fund which you're managing and what are the issues, and that would be great if you could make it.
It would be an honor for me to make it, inshallah, and have the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. From my side.
Kamlesh, thank you so much. Before, I would just like to say, old is gold. We treasure you and your experience. Yeah. And rightly said, Miss Nabila is very inspirational. We would really love to have you at the conference in India. So I hope you do come.
I will try. I'll get more information from you.
Yes, yeah, sure. And with this, we come to the last bit of the program is with the vote of thanks. So I request CA Unmesh to please deliver the formal vote of thanks for today.
Thank you, Shilpaji. I think Gopalji has raised hands, so I'm just promoting him to the panelist.
Oh,
poll.
perfect. Yeah.
Gopalji.
Gopalji, you can unmute yourself and and you can even switch on your video if you would like.
As CA Rajiv Saxena ji was also telling about the triangle in which the fraud has been committed, I would like to just emphasize on one thing, that fraud can also take a dimension of capability and ability. So it need not be restricted to a triangle. It can be a square or a multi-dimensional by nature. This was one of these CP events which some time back also, I think CA Chinnaswamy Ganeshan, while for the Nagpur seminar on auditing standards, had actually expressed it. And if I'm not mistaken, to the best of my knowledge, CA Kamlesh Vikram sir was also the past president of CA Institute and has been instrumental to a very great extent in bringing the CPE chapter to Muscat, if I'm not mistaken. Is it true, sir?
Yes, indeed, of course. And I had very good friends in Muscat, and therefore, I mean, there's a love and affinity to the Muscat chapter. Thank you.
Yes, sir. That's all from my end. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak.
You're always welcome. And I guess, like you said, it's a non-linear world now. So everything is multi-dimensional. Over to you, Unmesh, for the vote of thanks. If there are no more questions to be answered, basically. Yeah.
Hi, Shilpa. Just sorry to interrupt. There's also you will have to felicitate the speaker.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Sorry about that. We would like to. I would request CA Unmesh to felicitate the speaker with the certificate. I'm sharing the certificate on screen.
Yeah, Rajivji, this reminds me of the classical criminology theory, which says there will always be a certain number of people motivated by greed, lust, or other factors who incline towards law breaking. And this pandemic specifically has put pressure on all of us, especially those who are having the authorities as well as the opportunities. And then that puts pressure on the these challenging times have put pressure on the businesses as well as the external and internal auditors as well. And your presentation, I'm sure, has helped all the participants to refresh and have a different insight on how they should be approaching it. So thank you, sir, for your guidance, and we present this small certificate as token of our appreciation for guiding the members.
Thank you so much, Unmeshji and Shilpaji and Sangeetaji, and I really am humbled by your kind words and this certificate of appreciation. I will definitely try to further improvise my in the future presentations, and will be really looking forward to many more opportunities where I can be have a small contribution to the CP committee of the Muscat chapter. I mean, there are I'm sure there would be some few more opportunities in the future as well. And I'm really thankful to Ms. Nabila and Amresh sir to be, to have agreed to be part of this session and, be kind enough to, give me that source of encouragement and the motivation. I mean, I may be, actually repeating myself, or may have already repeated 2-3 times, again repeating, but then, like, I'm really happy that, one, that I was invited for this session. Two, I mean, the sheer, this presence of the distinguished, the members of the coordinating committees of the Muscat chapter, which include Unmesh ji, Shilpa ji, and Sangeeta ji, and obviously the chief guest, Ms. Nabila ji. And the most motivating factor was having, Mr. Vikram say as the guest of honor. And, like, I mean, the day when I already have said, but then I take another opportunity to repeat myself that, like, the day when the poster was shared with me, I was jumping, like, Mr. Vikram says there must be, and, like, that gave me, I mean, I spent a few hours trying to improvise my presentation, like, I mean, not that I had produced any substandard presentation earlier, but then, I revised it again, because I thought there may be some questions or, points of views from him as well, so I, like, when you prepare for CA intermediate, when you prepare for CA final, so there is a, a difference in the level of the efforts you put in, so that was when, I mean, I really overwhelmed by, the august presence of Mr. Vikram say, Ms. Nabila, and everybody here.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. We will email this certificate to you shortly.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Over to you, Unmesh ji, for the vote of thanks.
Everybody, thank you, Shilpa ji. Thank you, Ms. Nabila. Thank you, Kamlesh sir. Thank you, Rajiv ji. We thank Nabila ji, our chief guest, for addressing the August gathering. We also thank Kamlesh sir for sharing your views and guiding us. Also, our expert speaker for the day, CA Rajiv ji, for this excellent presentation. And then sharing the tagline for the day, in God we trust and in rest we audit. I think I'm going to carry that with me, and probably I'm going to put it on my desk. So that's, I'm also in the external audit field, so that's a very very guiding principle. God we trust and rest we audit. Thank you all. Last but not the least, we would like to thank CBFS, our sponsors, and our routine sponsors, which you can see on the backdrop here, and also all the members and the participants who are active in the presentation and have carried good memories and good insights. So thank you all. With this, may I end the session? Anybody wants to share any views?
Thank you so much, CA Unmesh. Thank you all once more. I'm signing off for today. Wishing you all a good weekend ahead, and God bless. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice. Bye-bye.
Yeah.